All right, today we're diving into something pretty incredible. It's a brand new AI that's designed to help doctors see what the human eye literally can't. And it could totally change how we diagnose some of the most common and, frankly, most frustrating eye diseases out there. So, how exactly does this thing see the invisible? Well, let's get into it. You know that feeling when your eyes are just dry and gritty and irritated? That sandy, burning sensation? If you've ever felt that, well, you are definitely not alone. It's an unbelievably common issue, and it's actually our starting point for the really complex problem we're tackling today. So, that annoying irritation, it often points to a condition called dry eye. And you'd think, since it's so common, diagnosing it would be a piece of cake, right? Wrong. Getting a clear, consistent diagnosis has actually been a huge challenge for doctors. To get a little more technical for a second, what we're really talking about is a whole group of disorders called ocular surface diseases, or OSD for short. And dry eye, it's kind of the superstar of this group. It's the most common one by far, and it's one of the leading reasons people end up in an eye doctor's chair, period. We're talking globally. Okay, so how do doctors actually figure this out right now? Well, the traditional way is a mix of two things. They listen to you describe your symptoms, and they run a bunch of clinical tests. But the thing is, this old school method has some pretty serious blind spots. And this really gets us to the heart of the problem. It's almost like they're diagnosing in the dark. Doctors are often stuck using tools and techniques that, honestly, have some major limitations. I mean, think about it. The procedures can take forever. And worse, you could have two different doctors look at the very same eye and come up with two totally different conclusions. It's really subjective. And maybe the biggest issue is that it's just so hard to accurately measure, to put a real number on the damage to those tiny, crucial glands in our eyelids. So with all these challenges, you're probably thinking, hey, isn't this what AI is for? And you're right to think that. But here's the catch. Even the really advanced AI models, they often struggle with this. They tend to give these super vague, unhelpful interpretations. It's kind of like pointing to a super complex medical scan and just saying, looks like there's a black spot in the eye. Yeah, that doesn't really help a doctor make a precise call, does it? But this is where our story takes a turn. A team of researchers has developed something completely new. They call it the Multi-Modal Diagnostic Pipeline, or MD-Pipe for short. And believe me, this thing is a whole new way of looking at AI in eye care. Now here's the key thing to understand. MD-Pipe isn't just another single AI model. No, it's designed to think and act like an entire team of medical specialists, where every member of the team has a very specific, very important job. So let's pop the hood and see how this AI dream team actually gets the job done. It's a really clever, three-step process that's basically designed to copy how a top-tier human expert would break down the problem. Okay, check this out. First up, you have the visual translator. Think of this as the detail-oriented lab tech. It scans the image of the eye and turns everything it sees into hard, quantifiable data. Next, you've got the report summarizer. This is like the chief resident. It takes all that data from the scan, combines it with the patient's symptoms, and writes up a full clinical report. And finally, you have the expert diagnostician. This is the seasoned pro, the senior consultant. It takes that report and makes the final call, not just the diagnosis, but just as importantly, the reasoning behind it. And this is where you really see the magic happen. I mean, look at this comparison. A normal AI might spit out something vague like abnormalities present or some distortion noted. Useless, right? But look at what MD-Pipe's visual translator does. It gives you a percent atrophy of 42.5%. It calculates gland density down to 1.2 glands per millimeter. This isn't a guess, it's hard data. It's the kind of specific, actionable information a doctor needs to make a confident diagnosis and actually track if a treatment is working. So you might be wondering, how did this expert diagnostician AI get so smart? Well, it got a two-part education. For its book smarts, it basically devoured the knowledge from 15 published clinical trials. But it also needed street smarts, and for that, it was trained on the real-world reasoning from 20 expert clinicians. So it doesn't just know the textbook, it knows how top doctors actually think. Okay, so the theory sounds amazing, right? But the real question is, does it actually perform? How does it stack up against the competition? Well, the researchers decided to find out by putting MD-Pipe head-to-head with some of the biggest names in AI. Let's just look at the raw numbers for diagnosing dry eye. A household name like GPT-4, it managed about 71% accuracy.
which, isn't terrible. But then look at MD pipe. It soared to almost 90% accuracy. That isn't just a little better, that is a massive, massive leap in performance.
Yeah, this is not just a small improvement. This is a total game changer. That almost 20-point gap in accuracy is huge. It represents a fundamental jump in reliability. It's the difference between an AI that's kind of helpful and one that a doctor can actually trust to get the diagnosis right, time and time again. So what was going wrong with the other models? Well, a human expert who reviewed GPT-4's work put it perfectly. The AI was flagging things as problems that were, well, totally normal. It saw a perfectly normal patient questionnaire score and some very minor eye redness and basically panicked, calling it a sign of dry eye. It just didn't have the nuanced, I've seen this 1,000 times understanding of a real specialist. But MD pipe? It was a totally different story. Those same clinicians looked at its work and called its reasoning clinically sound. It wasn't just making educated guesses. It was correctly applying the established diagnostic rules. It was thinking like a real, trained doctor. All right, let's zoom out. What does all of this mean for the future of eye care? Because this is way more than just a cool research project. This has real-world implications for, well, pretty much anyone with eyes. For us as patients, this could be huge. Imagine getting a clear, objective diagnosis on your very first visit. Imagine fewer of those uncomfortable tests. A treatment plan that is actually personalized to exactly how severe your condition is. What this technology does is it puts the brainpower of a world-class specialist right into the hands of your local eye doctor. And all of this leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. When you have technology this powerful and this precise, it really doesn't seem like a question of if an AI like this will be part of our medical care, but simply when.